in podcast. Geno, how are you today?
Good, Keith. How was your week?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was pouring a little bit out there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Fall weather. Anything new with Sanchez or
No, nothing.
Stella?
New. Nothing new at all. Worked yesterday, 24, and it was a very quiet day. So
nice. Yeah, it's been a pretty quiet week for me too.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get right into it then. We got our first.
Real quick before we do get into that, before we jump into that, I was on social media earlier, and I've told Dan about this gentleman. This is just I just want to start with this, but I told Dan about this gentleman, and he has a social media platform. You could find him on Facebook, and I'm sure he's on the other ones. I'm not, but it's called Rescuing Providence, and this guy's a retired Providence firefighter. And now he's an author, and he's an amazing writer. He talks about life in the firehouse, and he talks mostly about his retired life and how it was to transition from being in the firehouse every day to, being retired. It was a big transition for him. But anyway, I snapped the thing that he wrote today, and he's got a great sense of humor. I don't know him personally, obviously, but he's got a great sense of humor. He does all different really neat things on there. So his page is called Rescuing Providence. But earlier today, with all the craziness in this world, everybody needs to just kind of step back and reflect a little bit. And his name's Mike Morse. If you ever look him up, it's Morse. But his post sometime this afternoon. It says, Honest Mike's New York City mayoral results, ... A, filthy rich New Yorkers will remain filthy rich. B, a few new politically connected people will join the filthy rich. C, more people will be considered poor and eligible for government benefits, more than likely, especially if yes. But anyway, he says, everybody complain. D, everybody will complain. And E, nothing in my life will change. I will remain far from rich, light years from filthy rich, not poor enough for free stuff, but too poor to do little more than get by. And at the end, he ends it and it says, and the truth be told, it's really not that bad. It's pretty good, actually.
I like that. Nice. What's that guy's name?
Michael Morse. His page is called Rescuing Providence, but a big shout out to him, and hopefully he gets this and sees it. So
nice. Made me think. So next week we're going to have FDNY Battalion Chief Mark Gregory on the show. So we're looking forward to that.
That's going to be big, big, man.
Awesome. I'm excited to talk to him, especially when I ask him about his time in Rescue 2. I think that's it's pretty cool. Then the week after we're going to have Bob Ulrich on. He's an author, a firefighter. I don't have off the top of my head what fire department he's with, but he wrote a book, The 40-Year Deployment, First Responders Journey. So I'm excited to talk to him about that.
Yeah, and I'm hearing there might be some other names coming up here soon too in the podcast, some heavy hitters. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like good things ahead.
Yeah.
So let's bring on our first guest here. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, bear with me. All right, welcome to the show, Rob Lisiecki. Rob is from Clairton Works Emergency Services. He's also a firefighter at the Pleasant Hills Volunteer Fire Company. That's how we know each other.
Hi, Rob.
How's
it going, man?
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Rob was on duty. Sorry, trying to get the format here right. Struggling with it. Rob was on duty when the incident, the explosion at Clairton Works happened. So we want to talk to him a little bit about that. But before we begin, we want to acknowledge the two workers who lost their lives in the August 11th explosion. Timothy Quinn, 39, Stephen Manifay, 52. Thoughts and prayers are with their family, coworkers, and the 10 others that are injured that day. So, Rob, so why don't you just go ahead and get started first before we get into that? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your career, and where you started at?
Yeah, for sure. So I started in the fire service in 2011, August of 2011. I started as a volunteer with the Clairton Volunteer Fire Department, and started there just to kind of dip my toes in the water and see if it was something I wanted to do. And it took off from there. I decided I wanted to do this as a career. Couple years after that, I got hired with U.S. Steel in the Emergency Services Department, started there. I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary there in May of 26. And I did 7 years in Clairton and moved out to the South Hills area with my now wife and stepdaughter and our little boy Archer, who was just born 8 months ago. And yeah, thank you. He's a handful, but he's awesome. Yeah, so once I moved out this way, obviously, you know, with the distance and travel, it wasn't going to work. Started exploring and found Pleasant Hills and loved it here ever since. So
Thanks for coming on, man.
yeah, thank you.
All right, so why don't you just walk us through that day, what you were doing when the explosion happened? I know you were nearby, and just go from there.
Yeah, so my specific responsibilities on my shift day to day are more fire inspector type responsibilities as far as checking and maintaining and maintaining fire extinguishers and suppression systems throughout the plant to the best that we're capable of fixing and maintaining things. Sometimes we do have to bring in, you know, outside contractors to help with the bigger jobs and such. But I was just going along my route in my assigned district, checking fire extinguishers and fire systems that happened to be, you know, not too far from that set of batteries. And I was going into a little building to check 2 fire extinguishers in there. And, you know, that's when it all kind of hit the fan from there. And it's a pretty interesting experience as far as when you watch movies and see explosions. It was almost kind of identical to that. The first thing I felt before I heard the explosion was just the concussion of the blast. And, you know,
Wow.
it's a pretty unique experience. I never want to experience again, obviously.
Yeah.
But, you know, just it was almost euphoric in a way, you know, trying to, you know, with the surprise of that, as you could imagine, you know, trying to figure out what's going on immediately after as I'm trying to get my bearings from just having the living crap scared out of me as well.
So, Rob, real quick to stop you, how far were you from that? Like the distance wise, I might have missed that.
I mean, I was probably within 100 yards.
Okay.
So I luckily had a set of buildings in between me and where the actual explosion happened.
Oh, okay.
But in between the 2 buildings, there's a little catwalk along the top that connects the 2 buildings, and it's open there. And when I looked through that opening area and just saw the smoke, the fire, and all the debris just raining down everywhere, I mean, it was one of those oh crap moments for sure. And you know, it felt like it took forever, but you know, in that split couple of seconds, just sitting there going, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah, it's a lot to
And
process.
then and then from that point on, though, I was just on autopilot. You know,
Mhm.
it took me a couple weeks to sort through that mentally and, you know, go back and replay and process exactly what happened. You know, the shock lasted way longer than I would have ever expected.
Mhm.
It's, you know, it's definitely an experience that I would not recommend anybody having.
No.
Very unique. Just like
know-
I said, from the concussion to the sound. And, you know, it's actually a little funny because I almost jumped a little bit with your little intro video with the explosion in the beginning of that.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest sound that you could put in audio to what it sounded like.
Wow.
So I know you had some temporary hearing loss
Yeah, I had some ringing in my right ear after that for, a week or so. And I've had examinations done and several hearing tests done, and I'm completely back to normal and good to go. So luckily there wasn't anything permanent there.
Oh, good for you. Good.
Yep.
Good. So right after you got your wits about you, I mean, to me, it's sort of interesting because I've never been in a situation like that. And I would think it'd probably take you a little bit to realize what just happened and get your wits about you. But once you got your wits about you and sort of started piecing together what was going on, what was your next steps, or what would you do then?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely probably one of the most hectic situations I've ever been involved in, for sure, in my entire career. But just once autopilot kicked in, you run towards the danger, as we're always trained to do and do day in and day out. And once I got a bigger view of everything that was going on is when it really set in, okay, this is real and this is actually happening. And so from that point on, me being the only one there, other than a bunch of area workers in the area, I automatically reverted to finding what victims I could and immediately just started triaging at that point.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out who my most critical patients were and, calling for resources.
Training.
That's the part that felt like it took absolutely forever. And, I got to give the hat off to all of the outside emergency response and the MCI plan and all the companies that responded for that. I mean, they did a heck of it.
Was on the first rig waiting to come into the gate.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I guess they held them up a little bit or something from what I'm hearing. You guys didn't call everybody in right away. I guess not to crowd the scene or.
Yeah, well, the streets in there are not like your streets you see outside.
Yeah.
They're tight. A lot of them, you can't get two cars to squeeze past each other easily, let alone big rigs like that. And, that is a concern, is clogging up those areas because, it was right along one of those roadways, those major roadways. And with all the debris and everything scattered everywhere, you had to come in from two different directions in order to navigate through there. So, jamming up the roadways and such there, would have caused certainly a giant problem as far as getting patients out.
So I imagine there's probably a whole process too, just to something like that happens, some catastrophic infrastructure damage, that there's a whole process they have to go through to make sure systems are shut down so there's no additional explosions or such would happen. So,
oh yeah,
I'd imagine it's probably a good idea to have all the first responders coming in initially until they make sure everything.
Yeah, for sure. Right. That's what I was getting at was, I wouldn't want everybody up my ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big behind the scenes part of this incident that a lot of people don't know, is all the other various departments of workers inside the mill that even put their lives and themselves in danger to isolate the gas processes and other processes.
Yeah.
To, at least make the immediate incident area safe to work in.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that just never ceases to amaze me. Just walking through those areas day in and day out on shift, seeing how many different processes there are going at once, and they all interlock with each other. And, we're definitely glad that we have a very good rapport with the other departments inside the mill and work with those guys very well hand in hand, and big shout out to them.
So at the mill, real quick, I'm just about like the personnel on staff, like in the fire department, right? The emergency services or whatever you guys are, whatever the title is for the where you're at, the emergency department.
Yeah. Emergency services is what we go
so
under.
How many other on duty emergency services workers are there in that plant? Because I worked in Clairton for, not at the mill, but in the city of Clairton for a long while. Excuse me. I never knew that. I knew there was security, But I never knew there was like on duty people there. So how many were on duty that day?
4. There's 4 of us. That's not including management.
Okay.
So, weekends, some of our management is Monday through Friday, but we always have one shift manager on between the 3 plants around the clock with us as well.
Oh, okay.
So there's 4 of us on the road at Clairton and Edgar Thompson, and 3 of us on the road at Irvin Works.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And when an incident like this happens, the other plants actually come in.
Yes. Yeah. We request help from the guys that are on shift, and then we have our own system set up for, a callback for guys to come in from outside of work as well. And then obviously, in big incidents like that, we're going to rely on a lot of outside help as well.
Yeah, especially initially, or at least in the first hour. You know what I mean? Until everybody else musters.
I know, like some plants and stuff will do a thing where they have fire brigades, or whatever. Like they'll have people doing regular jobs, and then if something like that happens, they actually go to the emergency services. Does that work that way there too? Like, is there guys that do regular jobs, like I don't know, whatever the process?
They don't have a brigade there, right?
Yeah.
It used to be a big thing years ago, and they kind of started fading it out a little bit over the past decade or so. Yeah. But we still do have several guys that are on technically the brigade. It's just they haven't added any new personnel to it for some time. So there's a lot of guys that have been there a while, and even initially right after the blast happened, and trying to get a game plan together and figure out exactly what's going on. We had 2 of those brigade guys there, to help out, which was, a big help there. Cause as you can imagine, in the immediate chaos of everything going on, aside from triaging patients, we also had, I don't know how many, area workers and contractors that were working in the area, just all in the immediate danger zone.
Wow.
And you got to think about, okay, I don't even know exactly what happened here. Is there a possibility of a second blast happening and then having more victims? So trying to corral all of those people out of the immediate danger zone, as well as trying to triage on top of that and rescue some victims that were unable to rescue themselves in the immediate area. It was very chaotic, but with the help of everybody that was there, between those 2 brigade guys and some of the area workers there too, we were luckily able to make it into a lot easier situation than it could have been, as far as only having essential people working in that immediate danger zone, not any more people than we needed, and just rotating guys to just everybody's hyped up on adrenaline and doesn't realize how tired you get, as far as carrying somebody on a stretcher even, and big kudos to all those guys. They really made that operation go a lot smoother than it would have been if it would have just been me and myself there to handle this until more help arrived.
Yeah.
So was it, after the explosion, was there much fire, or was it just like hot spots that you guys had to deal with?
Initially, there was a good bit of fire there, just from, materials igniting and burning in that explosion area. But a lot of it seemed to be more gas fed than anything, as those products kind of burned off, and we started getting water on it pretty quickly. And at that point, once we were able to control the main bulk of the fire there, we were able to start actually investigating further, as far as going pretty much into that immediate area and searching for victims and trying to get a better gauge of what we had going on.
The other question I had is, when you're going around doing your inspection duties, do you take a vehicle with you, or do you have your equipment, your PPE and stuff with you?
Yep. Yeah. So at the beginning of our shift every day, we keep our gear and regular turnout gear gear bags. And so we have a staging area where that all goes at the end of our shift. So at the beginning, we put it in our trucks with us, so we have it wherever we are and such. And we don't all respond directly to the fire station to get an apparatus. We generally only have one person respond to get the apparatus or the ambulance, and then the rest of us go directly to the scene.
I see.
So, the other question, like right after this happened, were you the first one there on the radio sort of relaying what was going on, or did somebody else?
Yeah, I actually called our dispatcher to, make him aware of what was going on and what resources I needed. And at that time, simultaneously, I mean, he was getting phone call after phone call. They have multiple phones in the dispatch center. Every single one of them was lighting up. I have to definitely give a lot of kudos to our dispatcher for being able to handle all that stress at once, between me yelling on the radio and, requesting, just barking out orders, what I needed immediately and such, and then trying to juggle all of that at once. And then, we do have direct communication to the county via radio if we need to, but, trying to do all of that at once is definitely really stressful. So big kudos to him too.
So the other thing, I was listening to, throughout the day during that incident, and I heard a lot when they were transferring patients, there was an on-site medical center that you guys have that people are getting transferred to, then triage there, I guess.
Yeah, that little clinic there essentially got turned into a triage or staging area as well for the less injured employees and such.
Mm-hmm.
But that clinic only deals specifically with U.S. Steel employees. We get a lot of our work-related physicals and such there, and it's more set up now for more like first aid type incidents and such. And we go ahead and transport ourselves also, BLS to Jefferson or Mercy, or wherever the patient needs to go if it's a little more serious than a Band-Aid or some Tylenol and electrolytes.
So they have medical staff on site there all the time?
They do, yes.
And so what do you have, like nurses there?
Yeah, we have, it's kind of a mix between the company that runs it, personnel wise, but we do have nurses and paramedics as well as, nurse practitioners.
Okay. Sure. That wasn't the day they were expecting when they're working there. Huh?
Yeah, definitely not.
So we have a question. So outside of fire departments responding to the mill when needed, does USS ever respond off property to go help surrounding municipalities if they call for them?
As of right now, we do not. That's not really anything I could give a whole lot of information on, because I'm not one of those people that makes those decisions.
Yeah.
But, I'm not even sure if we've been approached in the past or not, but that would be a question to be more directed above my head for sure.
I guess it'd probably be pretty difficult because, obviously you guys sort of have a minimum staffing on site, and it's
well, yeah, just like anywhere, the minimum staffing, I'm sure, the legalities of it as far as like workman's comp things go.
Yeah,
and, a lot of that stuff would have to change. And, it's not simply as easy as just saying, oh, they requested us, so, just go. I know as far as right now, that's more up to the determination of our management.
Yeah.
We are specifically requested.
Way above their pay scale.
Yeah.
So the other thing, as far as patients and stuff go, I was listening that day too. I guess they were actually landing helicopters right on the property. Is that routine? Do you guys have like a landing zone there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually do have our own landing zone set up. We've
used landing zone multiple times.
Yeah. The Southeast Regional has requested our helipad over the years quite a few times for critical patients and stuff when that's, essentially the closest area, for them. Across the river. And
I think that helipad's actually the city of Clairton's official helipad. Like, because I remember, like, as a cop, we would land like if I was doing like a high risk search warrant, stat would come in and land on that pad until we called the scene clear. And
Okay.
then they would take off. They don't do it anymore. They probably do it in other places, but yeah, so we would have stat land there constantly, and they would just stay running in case some, God forbid, would have happened to one of our search warrants. But
Yeah. That hasn't happened in a while, at least in my time there. But yeah, definitely for outside EMS and stuff. Yeah.
So back to your day to day. You said you do inspections, but what's a typical day there? Obviously, these type of things don't happen all the time. This is hopefully a once in a lifetime incident that will happen there. But what's a typical day to day for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, as far as day to day now, afterwards is certainly a little different than it usually is with everything going on in the, deconstruction and reconstruction process of the area and stuff. But, as far as, like I said, for me, I'm the fire inspector on my shift. So, the inspections and such and anything that comes up with that is generally what my responsibility is going to be. And
that's a lot of responsibility, though. I mean, if you're doing fire inspections on, like you said, even just not just a fire extinguisher in a mill. I mean, it has to work. You know what I mean? There's
exactly yes.
An apartment building in a hallway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
exactly.
Sometimes they'll work, sometimes they won't. I mean, your shit has to work.
Yeah, and especially in the mill, it's not a clean working environment.
Sure, right.
Anybody that's been inside of a mill or even just any type of industrial operations area knows that there's going to be dirt, there's everything, grease, and that stuff will cake up and pile up on those things.
Yeah.
And, a lot, some of that stuff is corrosive too. So that's a lot of, the reason why we're doing that monthly is to check and make sure they're not only in working condition, but just in good condition or there altogether.
Yeah.
So, this question just ran off the top of my head. I was just thinking about
sugar getting low.
Yeah, I guess. I was going to ask you something about the inspections. Oh, I know what the question I wanted to ask you. So, can you explain what Clairton Works actually does? For the longest time, I referred to it as a steel mill. I thought you guys made steel there, but apparently that's not the case.
They used to make steel way back, probably before my time, maybe your time for sure, Keith, maybe Gene, I don't know. That was an old joke, by the way. But yeah, they haven't made steel at Clairton in quite some time. Our main processes there are chemicals and coking. So the coking process is just baking coal in an oven, and it comes out, and once it's pushed out of the ovens, it has rocks about that big. That's what they look like, as rocks, and that's like one of the main ingredients in the steel making process currently.
Oh, I see. Okay, so, I knew the process because you'd see all the trucks going back and forth on 837 like all day long when I worked there.
Yep. Those trucks are hauling coke outside, whether it's being shipped via barge, train from elsewhere.
So is one of the other plants like Irvin or Edgar, one of them actually using the coke to make steel?
Yeah, we actually train it directly down to Edgar Thompson, and it comes off the trains there and straight into the blast furnace.
It's interesting.
That's really where they mix the iron ore and the coke, with the molten scrap metal, and that's where the process starts to become steel.
That's pretty cool.
So mentally, how are you doing after that?
I know how you hanging in there.
Mentally, I'm solid now for sure. I can't give enough thanks to the company and the union for the resources that they provided. Everybody, and the overwhelming support, from the community means a lot from all of us, inside the mill too, just to see the overwhelming amount of support that we got, with people even dropping off drinks and Gatorades and waters and food to the gate and stuff, That
was a big thing that day.
That was a big mental boost too, for a lot of us that were there working too, and it brought up a really unique situation for me mentally as well, because not just processing an incident that big and catastrophic, it was the first time in my career that I actually sort of felt survivor's guilt. And that's not really anything that I would have ever associated with this job,
Yeah.
at least very often, or tried to prepare for, or looked for ways to really, prepare for that,
There's
as I
no way to
mentioned.
prepare for it. I mean, you plan for it. You can't mentally
Yeah,
prepare for that, obviously.
absolutely. Yeah. And, like I mentioned before in the beginning, I have kids of my own at home,
Sure.
and, unfortunately, some of the deceased had kids as well. And,
Yeah.
that plays, mind games with you right off the bat from
Sure.
that point. And, just being in such close proximity to it,
Sure.
is,
At 100 yards.
yeah. And it's like, okay, if I would have been, 20 yards this way or 20 yards that way, you know, what would it have looked like?
Sure.
And it certainly has changed me, as far as moving forward, my view on just being even just more aware of my surroundings when I'm there,
Yeah.
and anywhere, because it's not just inside an industrial environment that this stuff can happen. In the fire service, we respond to natural gas calls in houses all the time. We've
Sure.
seen over the years how many times, houses have exploded,
Sure.
in Allegheny County alone.
Right.
There's been one or two in the past couple years, and it just really makes you think. And I kind of really leaned hard on my faith in God and Christ, and just really believed and held on to the fact that I was placed there at that specific time for a specific reason. And that helped me get through a lot. And I worked with the mental health professionals, more my own that I had already had an established relationship with,
Oh, okay.
outside of here, or outside of
Yeah.
work. But
Life.
one of the greatest things was, and I'll make a point to it as well, is the big meeting that we had with the mental health professionals with just our guys,
Okay.
and having that, decompression time for everybody to talk about it and just get it off their chest that wanted to. And
Mhm.
even some that may not have wanted to talk about anything or were still processing, it was comforting to hear that there were other people in the same room as you, that we're all very tight with each other,
Right. Well,
and
on the fire service end, we have a good resource of Donnie Brucker. If you ever needed to, reach out for anything,
yeah,
he's a great. I don't know if you ever met him before, but before we end this interview, I just wanted to make sure that you knew that, there's, I'm glad you're okay, dude. I really am. I'm glad I sort of say, I'm glad you're healing.
yeah, for sure.
You'll spend a very long time healing. It is part of the job. Well,
Yeah,
it's not
for
like
sure.
you just leave it at the gate. You know
Nope.
what I mean? Yeah, you bring in that shit. I got it. I've been there,
Yep.
brother. I've been doing this we've all been doing this for a very long time.
Yep.
You got retired cops sitting in the room waiting to come on. He's seen, yeah, you know what I mean? We all been there, brother. You ever
Yeah,
do
for
anything,
sure.
reach out.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
just want to, hit that nail, with my hammer as well, is,
Right.
don't be afraid to ask for help if you're
Sure.
struggling. And the biggest thing is, all of us in the service too need to be your brother's keeper in a way too.
Sure. Absolutely.
We can all talk to each other and relate to each other way better than we could, even mental health professionals, in my
Sure.
opinion, just, with the bond that we all have, and, just working and being around each other every day.
I say this, one of my ways that I've been dealing with it obviously since the 80s, is I'm an open book. You know what I mean? If you want to talk about something with me, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I don't care. It doesn't. I mean, it's not that I'm not affected by it. obviously, but if anybody asks, yeah, I'll tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I just kind of have, it's not saying like a blasé attitude about the job, obviously, because I love it, but it's, you just have to be able to compartmentalize it and deal with it in that compartment. That's fine. It can stay there.
Yeah.
Line of being there. I know it's always going to be there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
Life. So you got to kind of put it there. But anyway, brother, before we end, you need anything, seriously, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the same for anyone else. Anyone can get in contact with me on Facebook or
Sure.
Instagram, anything. I'm more than willing to help anybody.
Absolutely, brother. All right, man.
Rob,
For sure.
appreciate you coming on, telling your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot. And I want to get a word from our sponsor, FireCam. We'd like to thank our sponsor, FireCam, the one and only manufacturer of helmet cameras built for firefighters. For over a decade, FireCam has been hell-bent on making durable, heat-resistant cameras worthy of the fire service. But they don't stop there. FireCam also offers dash cams, body cams, drones, and more. Their new FireCam Blackjack flashlight kit is a must-have for interior firefighting. With 3 helmet cameras to choose from, the FireCam Mini 1080, the FireCam 1080, and the FireCam Onyx 4K, there's an option for every firefighter. Order now at firecam.com.
This is Geno Esken. This is Debbie. There's a fire up here.
Where?
I think in our stock room. My manager's calling for me to call the fire department immediately.
Okay, stock room at K-Mart.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. KSS 946 to Pleasant Hill Station 2 Fireman. We have a fire in the stock room at the K-Mart, Route 51, K-Mart Plaza. Time now 12:39.
This place is going good. Staff there. I want to get set up here. Dan, I'm coming up on you now. I'm making it to command post. 61. Go ahead. Staff, this is the manager. The fire is in the back right-hand corner of the building. Got to go up a set of steps and into the stock room. It's the food racks that are on fire where it started.
All right. It was March 29th, 1999, a bright, windy Monday afternoon when a call came in for a fire at the storeroom at the K-Mart in Route 51. Within minutes, it turned into one of the largest commercial fires Pleasant Hill's ever seen. That day, Chief Dan Haeck was in command. Scott Kunz, to my left here, welcome Scott to the show, was the captain of the first arriving engine with Geno and his crew. And I was on the first truck end working with Assistant Chief Mark Grimm. Scott, thanks for joining us to help tell the story that day.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So before we get to Dan's take on it, I just want to throw this out there. A good friend of mine is shift commander at the Allegheny County 911 Center. Terry Culligan has been begging me for years and years and years to tell the story about K-Mart. So I'm
You
glad
think he's watching?
I'm sure. I know he's watching. So
Oh, okay.
I'm finally glad that he's going to get to hear the story of K-Mart. So Dan, you were first on the scene. What did you see when you pulled up?
Well, before we get to that, I just want to say that this was no surprise to anyone in our fire company or in our area. We had talked about K-Mart burning down since I joined in the mid 70s. So we all knew it was going to happen. Our efforts to get the ownership to install sprinklers were futile over the years. We had other buildings that burned in a similar manner, Grant City, Kresge's, Levine's Hardware, Beer Box. K-Mart was kind of like the last one to go, and we knew it was just a matter of time. It was the biggest one, obviously, around 100,000 square feet, and it was the last unprotected construction type building in the borough. Upon arrival, I saw a decent amount of smoke coming from the rear roof area. Honestly, my initial thought was that I had a good crew on the road in less than a minute. I think there was 7 on the engine, and we would get a good knock and wait for help to arrive, and we'd probably be out of there in an hour. Things changed quickly. I went in through the garden center entrance. with the intention to find the fire location and get back out quickly to direct interior crews on how to get to it. I made it in about 50 feet and encountered conditions that were not suitable without gear or SCBA. The smoke was banking down fast to about 6 feet from the floor, and I knew there was much more going on than met the eye, so I got the hell out of there. Real quick, I did want to mention this because it probably won't come up again. We now know what it was that was going on. It was a built-up roof. I'm sure a lot of people listening right now know what that's all about right now, but at the time, it was kind of just being figured out by a lot of the people in the fire service. So a built-up roof, which is constructed of corrugated metal, laying on steel joists. The tar is spread on the metal with insulation, more tar, roofing paper, topped with more tar, and gravel to give it some ballast. These roofs can burn independently of the fire beneath it, and that's what happened here. The heated bar joists elongate, push down masonry walls which support them, and this can be far from the fire underneath. As the temperature rises more, the bar joists simply fail, causing roof collapse. Again, these guys are going to explain how close it was for them inside that building, because that's what happened to them. Dumping water on the roof is useless, as the fire is now gas-fed and under the roof. The tar is heated to a boiling point, causing highly flammable gases to get trapped by the layers of roofing material, forced down through the joints in the steel decking. They ignite and roll along under the roof, causing more of the same to happen. The fire rolls along in waves, and this is what my attack crew encountered. With information from an eyewitness stating that there was a woman in a wheelchair trapped inside, we had no choice but to send a crew in. I'll let the representatives from that crew talk about that assignment that could have easily ended in tragedy. So Geno and Scott, you can kind of take it from here.
Yeah, so Scott, why don't you walk us through, you were the captain of the engine and you and your crew, Geno, made entries. So why don't you let's walk us through how that happened and what the conditions were.
All right. Well, before that, we were actually dispatched to another call. We were dispatched to a transformer leaking fluid on Terrence Drive. And Geno was actually the driver on the engine. We pulled out onto the apron, getting ready to go to that call, and we were then dispatched to the K-Mart fire. So at that point, Geno decided, well, I don't want to be driving to a structure fire, so I'm going to get out. And then Mike Grimm actually jumped in and drove the engine to that call. On our way down 51, I remember looking kind of over at K-Mart as we're going down 51 and just saw a small plume of smoke coming up from the back of the building. Kind of the same thoughts Dan had. Okay, we got a small fire in the back of the building storeroom. We'll go in the front. We'll go right in back. We'll put this thing out, and that'll be it. As we came in, we were given instructions to take the private hydrants on the, I guess, the south end of the complex on the 1-2 corner of the building. We went down along the bottom of the parking lot, swung around, dropped Sean Grosowski off to take the hydrant. We proceeded to the front side one of the structure. And I think at that point, Gene, you jumped off and kind of went in.
Yeah, I
to
went
kind
in.
of get an idea.
The report was that wheelchair.
Right.
You know, the person in the wheelchair. I met that manager said that to me when I was walking in, and the doors. You know, I won't. But I jumped out, and the doors leading into the main door, the open sliding doors, were just the electrical system obviously was compromised in the building. So you just have the sliding doors were just banging against each other. So, and I'll back up a little bit real quick. I'll give my point of view up to this point where what I was doing. I was working as a full-time cop in Clairton, and it was my first full-time job where I was getting benefits and everything. And I went out and bought that Blazer. Remember that Blazer I had? And I bought that Blazer, and that was like my pride and joy, you know, just like all my cars are. But I kept it very clean. Remember, we used to wash our cars all the time. So that's what I was doing before my 3 to 11 shift to go patrol in Clairton. And so we were at the firehouse. I don't know what you were doing, but we were hanging out or whatever. And so yeah, I'm like I pull the engine out for those wires down, or transformer, whatever the heck it was, down on Terrence. And Kay got back on the radio, or she hit the tones again.
Yeah.
So she hit the tones. I remember sitting in the engine. She hits the tones again, and I'm like, I know she know we acknowledged. What is she doing? And then she's like firing a stock room K-Mart. I'm like, neutral, maxis. I got in the back, and I remember saying, you know what? There's no way I'm driving to this one. And so anyway, yeah. So we're coming down 51 South, and if you remember the famous Chi-Chi's. It was the slight bend on 51 there where you can get like an open view of almost the Coal Valley, really. Almost like a little bit, almost at least the Sheets. Now where Sheets is now. And I remember looking down, and I remember I was forward facing in the rear seats, and I remember looking down going, oh man. I just remember this is it. This is it. This is gonna be pretty cool. And it was.
Yeah. So I guess before we get into the make an entry, I guess we'll just tell us what we're all doing that day. But this was early in the day. It's like what, 12:34. So I was still sleeping.
Of course.
And the wires call came in, and I remember reluctantly getting out of bed to start going to the station for the wires down call. But I think it was in my yard, and like you say, that Kate put us out again. I'm like, well, why is she dispatching us again?
Yeah. Well, you know.
And I actually worked at Pleasant Hills as a dispatcher then.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, why is she dispatching again? And I never forget that fire and stock room at K-Mart, because we've always talked about.
Oh, it was
we had a fire.
pre-planned. It was, we had a nozzle.
Kmart.
The nozzle was the K-Mart nozzle.
Yeah.
Forever. It was always the thing, the big deluge tip or whatever it was.
So I gunned it down the fire hall, and I got on the truck with it was me, Mark Graham, George Haeck was driving, and who did I say it was? Ryan Wilkins.
Ryan Wilkins.
Yeah, but I just remember I was facing backwards going down 51.
Yeah.
I remember the look on Ryan Wilkins' face when he saw what was going on there. And I think from when you guys got there to when we got there, I think conditions had changed drastically.
So anyway, we'll get to that point there with conditions changing. But anyway, by that time, you guys had run down the street, hit that plug, and came back, and you guys were pulling a 2-inch, right?
We were pulling a 200-foot 2-inch
and
off
I was
the truck, and you were pulling what we call the Mac Attack.
Yeah, it's just like a
200-foot of 3-inch
right.
with a gated Y on it,
right.
to so we could extend into
we
the
knew
building.
in my transmission because when I first got in there, I gave Danny a report from being inside, because I had spoke to those people, and they had told me, hey, it was in the back. And I intimately knew that building because my family's landscaping business had the maintenance contract for that building. So every morning, my brothers and I would drive down to Kmart to pick up the trash, and then we would weed whack the hillside. And we had a garage actually attached to the back of that building that had all our lawn mowers and things when my brothers first started cutting grass. So it was kind of used, but it wasn't used. It was more for salt and a tractor or snow blower, shit like that to keep the parking lot clean, or the sidewalks and stuff. So anyway, I knew the building. So when that person told me where the fire was at, I'm like, all right, we got this. I knew the layout of the floor plan. I knew when you walked in, everybody remember this, when you walked into the front doors of the Kmart, and probably every Kmart in America at that point, was the jewelry counter. And it was probably 20 feet in from the main entrance, maybe 30 feet. And then if you made a right or a left, you could go down a main aisleway, which take you back to the cross aisles, remember?
Yep.
And it was the automotive, where you walk kind of bared right a little bit, kind of to go back. I knew
through
the
doors and
so
into the storeroom.
well. Our family bought everything there. And I'm like, wow, we got this. It's going to be nasty, but we're going to get it.
That's all.
So I ran out, grabbed the Mac Attack, because I knew we didn't have 200 feet wasn't going to be enough, at least not to play with when we got back there. And so yeah, back then all that's going through my head too as we're entering this building. So I got the Mac Attack. You gave me the coupling, or someone gave me the coupling, and I screwed the coupling on. And I had my hand on that nozzle. So anyway,
so it was myself, I believe Oliver Durden and Jay Mulligan, actually, both rest in peace there. Lost both of them. And we entered the building, and I remember going in, and it was, you couldn't see anything.
No, spoke to the ground.
Remember running into clothes racks.
Yeah.
And thinking to myself, let's back out. Let's find the main aisle to the back, because if we do need to get out of here, I do not want to get caught in these clothes racks.
Right.
So we started to back up then to find that main alleyway to the back of the store. And I don't know why people talk about, when we talked afterwards, interviews about this train noise.
Oh, absolutely. It sounded like a freight train.
I never heard that.
Oh, you didn't?
I never heard
It
that.
was very concerning.
I just got this feeling in my gut or whatever, like
Right.
we should not be in here. And at that point, I remember looking back and talking to Ollie, I think was behind me, like, let's go, we're getting out of here. And as we started backing out is when Dan got on and said, evacuate the building. I want everybody out at that point.
So real quick, Dan, what were you seeing outside at that
How
point?
quickly did it change, Dan? Like from when we entered the building to when you told us to get out?
Yeah, I had the same feeling Scott had from the outside, and I didn't know you had already started to retreat, but I was honestly, it was difficult because we were in there knowing there might be a lady in a wheelchair in there.
Right.
And to be quite honest, I looked at that place and said, you got to get out of there. And if she's in there,
Yeah, God bless. You know,
God bless.
We're deep. We were I think, pretty deep.
Yeah,
We're probably
Kay
50 feet.
actually,
Probably at least 50, 60 feet or so into the building.
Kay
Oh.
actually got a call later on from that lady or the family of that lady. They had heard that we were looking for her,
Okay.
whether they had a scanner or
I don't
whatever.
remember that. Yeah.
But Kay relayed to me that she was out, and I was extremely relieved. But yeah, Scott, I had the same feeling you did, and just thankful you guys got out of there because you got caught in that roof situation, and it just went. You went in right at the time when those gases made their way through and ignited from the fire below.
Right.
And so on our way out, like remember we got to the towards the main doors, and Geno was still at the Y, and
You almost
I'm
got
like,
water. Just
Yeah.
letting you know, I was very close to pulling that
Yeah.
lever and coming to you.
but I remember getting back there and like we're gone, and we left the Y and dumped our nozzle and stuff right there inside the entrance, and then exited the building. And when we got out, I know, like I said, we dropped Sean to hit the hydrant, and he was nowhere around out front. So I actually walked the length of the building to see if he was okay, if something happened at
Yeah.
the hydrant.
He was
To check
really
on him.
new, right? He was pretty new guy. But
No, I think because he had joined right around when we joined, I think.
Okay.
Not too long. So, but I didn't know if maybe something happened, if he needed help or whatever. So I remember walking the building, checking on him. He was good. And I'm like, let's go. I walked back up to the front of the building. And by the time it took me to walk down there, check on him and walk back, the entire roof was down at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were within minutes of being down.
I think it was less than that. I think I'll be honest with you. I didn't think time slowed down, but I think what I remember after that point, we get out of the building, right? I was a lot healthier back then. So I might have only burned through a half a cylinder maybe at that point. It wasn't a lot. I still had air to do
I remember you
something.
talking to about the look on our faces, I guess.
Oh,
the face
yeah,
pieces
yeah.
on the
So
way
I'm
out.
standing at that gated Y. I mean, I'm kneeling at that gated Y. And I mean, you could hear it happening. And I'll tell you this, I remember hearing all the stuff exploding in the automotive department. And I'm like, oh man, there's no way I'm missing this. And so I just wanted to open the line up to get up to you. And so anyway, I'm there at the gated Y, and I'm ready. I'm about to give him water. If it's on his shoulder, how bad could it really hurt? You know what I mean? And I got my hand on the gate, and all out of the smoke, which was thick, out of the smoke, I just see whites of eyes through Draeger face pieces. And I think you said, like, let's go, we're going, or whatever. And like I said, we weren't that far. It sounds like we're saying we were 200 feet in the building.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just starting our operation in the interior, in what we thought was.
Yeah, we didn't make it very far.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we had a game plan.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Even at that young age, how long ago, Dan? 28 years now?
Yeah, something like
but
that.
yeah.
But if you'd have tried to get that
I think
Mac
we're-
attack out of there, you wouldn't have made it.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. So anyway,
There's a reason you left that.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess our gut's good, but whatever. It's still, but anyway, coming out of the building, and I remember meeting another member there on the, in the parking lot, and they said, hey, they need you at the truck. And at the time,
You were not needed at the truck.
I know, here we go. We're going to start this. But anyway, I needed the truck. So that was like my baby,
So
obviously.
let me just interject there. So I was on the truck, and I got off and I set the truck up. I don't know what Mark was doing. I think Mark sort of sizing things up or something. So I set the truck up, And, we had steps on either side of the truck that climb up to the turntable, and I was on the driver's side.
Right.
And I put the steps down, and I am so excited because the truck was, what will you get the truck?
Truck was a 92.
Yeah. So it's
So 7
99.
years old.
Yeah, but I know.
We
I guess,
used to train, if you remember back in the day, we used to train each of the guys that there was the
You took your
operator,
side,
you
Yeah.
took your side, you took your side. It was,
and then
it
you
was
two
pretty-
went up.
yeah. So, but I was like ecstatic. I couldn't wait to get up in that basket. I'm like, this is going to be awesome, And then I put the step down, and as I was starting to climb up, I seen you climbing up the other side and going up the ladder. And then Mark, who obviously outranks me, right behind you. I'm like, you kidding me? So I was stuck on the turntable, but pick up from there. I sort of lucked out by something that happened, but good.
Oh yeah. So anyway, and I know Mark will argue with me forever. You know where I'm going with this, Scott.
Here we
And-
go.
And so anyway, we train where we climb up the ladder. As we're ascending, right where the air tanks are, you turn the air tanks on. That's the first person up the ladder. That was trained. We used to do training all the time. First person up the ladder turns the cylinders on. Well, I was up the ladder first. He thinks he was up the ladder first. Blah blah blah. Whatever. I think I turned them on. I say he turned them off. He's saying the other thing. If he's in the comments or he sees this later, we'll argue about this when we're at each other's hospice at some point in our lives, because we'll all be together, obviously. But anyway, when we got up there, we were obviously packed up. We weren't, there was
The connections. and
the
stuff.
connections in the basket. So I figured, what the hell, we'll burn through the cylinder and then we'll make the connection, right? Or in some point in time, we're getting the guns working and everything. So there was a little bit going on. And we went to make the connection, or I first went to make the connection to the inboard air,
Inlet.
and it didn't work. And I trained and trained and trained and trained and trained on that. And we had problems over the years with that, but it was more of maintenance problems that, you know what I mean? Everything just needed updated all the time, and it cost money, obviously. But anyway, that was always a thing. So when I hooked up to that air, when it didn't work, I automatically knew something was screwed up in the system. That's how well I knew that truck. And I'm like, that's it. We don't have air. I'm like, there's no way jackass shut them off when I turned them on. So anyway,
well, that lucked out for me because you guys came down. You swap out your bottle. Mark, I guess, decided to go do chiefly things and help command the
I
incident or
think he was
something.
lieutenant at the time.
yeah. So anyway, we only had
Yeah.
cylinder air.
Because Todd and Plum were assistant chiefs.
Maybe. But so then I went up with you, and
Right.
then we were up there the rest of the day. And I think at some point we just decided that screw it, we'll just take our mask off and breathe in this toxic smoke that was
We
coming up.
were in a position. It was so windy that day that yes, like sometimes a gust would come over, but we had SCBA up there. I don't want to throw us under the bus. We had SCBA on,
Yeah.
Keith, remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually remember you talking about that though. To back up a little bit, was we were pulling in the parking lot with the truck. We couldn't see anything because the smoke was banked down the parking lot so much. And I remember George mentioned something to Mark. He's like, Mark, I can't see. And there
Yeah.
was people running around the parking lot trying to get
Yeah.
out of there. There's cars everywhere.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
how
remember
rapidly it changed.
It was literally a firestorm
Yeah.
in the parking lot. Like the winds picked up, and it was like the winds were like the fire was trying to suck the oxygen in. It was creating almost like a tornado effect in the parking lot. Like it was.
Well, that was after everything. Yeah. But like I knew, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying I was some kind of expert, but I obviously knew that once the doors slammed shut, the front doors slammed shut of that place, because it was doing this for a while, and they finally slammed shut. But I knew we had control of that man door. If you remember, that's where we made our operation, was through that man door, because I chalked that man door when I was coming out.
I think that's the door Dan went in at one point too, because the lady was supposedly by the pharmacy, and I think there was that man door to the right of the main doors.
Yeah.
I think you actually
yeah,
kind
but
of
we
peeked
went
in through there,
there was two
also
main
thinking
doors.
maybe she was
yeah.
inside there.
But I chalked that left glass man door. And thankfully, you know what saved our lives? And I just thought about this right now, flow path for wood. If we would have made entry through those open sliding doors, think about how big that opening is. That opening's probably 30 by 10 feet. I'm talking about, like the old school man, when you come into the store, the doors would open up. there in K-Mart and had that little foyer area in it, you know what I'm talking about? And like where the buggies were and shit. If that would have opened up, I bet you that collapse would have happened on us. Because there wasn't much flow path. There was lots of fire, a lot of BTUs happening above us, obviously, but flow path was a big thing there because we didn't have a big opening. It was literally a glass man door, if you remember them.
Yeah.
And I remember taking the chalk off my leather and tossing it in at that door. I'm like, okay, this is my way out. You know what I mean? Because it was that bad initially entering that building by myself, like just to see, you know, what was conditions or whatever, because I knew we were coming up to make entry. But yeah, it was smoke to the ground. And that freight train sound.
Like I said, I don't remember hearing that.
And all
Everybody
that
else talked about it, but I,
inexperience,
for some reason, didn't.
You know, again, Dan said with the built up roofs, you know, you don't know what, you know what I mean? Like we weren't, I wouldn't say trained because we were trained. We're very trained. But, you know, technology and then building construction, roof construction, you know, all those things, right, Dan? Like we
didn't know anything about
rapidly changing.
This was like a phenomenon back then. This was just like the fire marshals knew it. Maybe some really advanced fire departments knew about this corrugated roof thing, but we never trained on it. We weren't aware of it.
We
And I
trained
think we
on
had
flat
that-
roof cutting, you know what I mean?
I think
Stuff
we
like
had that attitude too. I mean, I think I was 25 at the time or whatever.
Yeah,
She was like 27 or whatever, and what 24 or whatever. Like, we're just going to go in and do this.
Invincible, baby.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know,
It wasn't even, listen, I'll tell you this right now. When I first made entry into that building and got to the jewelry rack and then came back out, you know, before I grabbed the Mac attack or the gated Y and you came in past me with the line, I never in a million years at that point, I remember like it was yesterday, in my head, thought that we were going to be running out of that building.
no,
There was nothing on my mind other than putting that fire out in that stock room, which I knew, you know what I mean? I knew going through those metal swinging doors, that's exactly where the fire was going to be. I'm like, this is going to be pretty cool.
that's the same thing.
Well,
we're going to go.
I'm
we're gonna
glad you
go
guys
back
got
and-
out because it would have been
We wouldn't
really
all be on
ugly
this
if you
channel
didn't.
right now.
And Keith, could you put up the overview real quick? I just want to say before I forget, I know it was a long time ago, but a couple of shout outs. Lee Price and 301. Lee took over the 3-4 corner of this fire, which inherently had no collapse zone and was the area where the storeroom fire was located. Lee took control of the tactics, water supply, and suppression of the area assigned to him. Lee and his crew encountered many problems such as unrelenting fire, collapsing wall, and exploding propane tanks. When asked, Lee was able, with the help of his crew, to relocate to a somewhat safer distance from the structure, which was a lot harder than it sounds. You can see him on the 3-4 corner was a key area, and he handled that whole thing with his crew and obviously the other companies that came in to supply water and everything. But at one point, as I was explaining that roof, the first step is it starts pushing out on that wall, and that's what started to happen there. So we had him I asked him to relocate. He didn't do it. And I asked him again, and he's like, I don't have any manpower. And
I think I remember hearing these tricks.
yeah, so we said, you got to get out of there. And he got somebody to help him.
He was trying to get the rig back up.
Yeah, they backed the rig up
Yeah.
behind like a trailer. And
Well, back there is very tight. If you remember driving around the back of the building, because I did it a million times because our little garage was back there and we had a sweeper back there and all that stuff I was seeing in that little shed thing. I know but intimately that.
so there's no collapse zone. It's a one lane.
It's concrete pillar, concrete, and
One lane.
concrete pillars against the building so
Right.
trucks don't hit the building.
Yep.
And then a literal Jersey barrier wall, if you remember, because the rocks would fall down and it would
Yeah.
be along that Jersey
Photo.
barrier, like catch.
Photo
It
of
was
it
like
up there,
real
right there.
tight. Yeah,
Where
I mean,
that-
it was, yeah.
Where that hole's
That
in the
makes it a little
walls.
big, trust me.
Where that hole
picture
in the
makes it
walls
big.
at, that's where 301 truck initially was.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And then they backed out at some
I
point.
understand.
We actually had a collapse zone problem around the whole building because when we got there, the parking lot was filled.
Yeah.
And there was like 200 patrons running
Yeah.
out the doors. So
Yeah.
we had no choice but to take the fire lane right up against the building. Later on in the fire, we kept getting reports from you guys in the basket
Mhm.
that the wall was bowing on the front, and we could have relocated them, but I told you to stay there because it was bowing in and not out. So we had all kinds of issues there, but Craig McDivitt, P95. You know what? Craig was and still is amazing.
He really is.
Yeah. He's still doing it
Listen,
every day.
He's I think he came in on like a third or second alarm extra or something to backfill our firehouse like a few months ago.
Yep.
And happily stayed downtown at one of the firehouses on 295's engine or
Yep.
the rig. And actually he had thought somebody left their cell phone, one of the members, and he actually drove back from number 3, not that it's far, come down into town. And we looked around in the stage, like the dude, he's
amazing.
He cares. It's so awesome. He should get like the I don't even know,
some kind of award.
Yeah, something. You know what I mean?
The Motorola McDivitt Award.
Oh, listen, I know he's going to hear this, or someone's going to definitely tell him about it. But
anyway,
yeah, he's a great dude, man.
The quick response of Truck 295 enabled me to establish a defensive mode on side 1 with no delay. Engine 295 played a key role in fighting the 1-4 corner where the propane tanks were stored. And Wagon 295 was a key water supply hub for Engine 2, Engine 36 at the time, and Truck 295 using that hydrant down at the quarter car wash.
That's that old R model they had.
31.
Yeah. 31 engine, yeah.
Kurt Neal. I don't know what I'd have done without him. Kurt and Baldwin EMS was there. I thank Kurt for sitting with me in Command 2 so that we could coordinate indescribable amount of incoming information. Kurt was extremely helpful in suggesting mutual aid from PBF for fuel and other companies outside of our pre-planned companies. There was so many people to thank, and I did, but just to mention a few, it was Skyview, Butch D, South Baldwin, Rich Balmer, Option, Duquesne Annex, Denny McDonough and Broughton, who took over the hazardous materials that were burning and coordinated the hazmat team response. Bill Refner, Castle Shannon. Truck 15 was extremely effective, positioned at the center of side 4 with the wind to their back. Mount Lebanon. Brentwood truck was out of service, but engine 41 helped keep the garden center under control. Large 885, Floor F, West Elizabeth, Guildhall, just to name some of them. It was a good coordinated effort. And to be honest with you, what I learned from that fire was we should have just let it burn.
Well, he also had an engine full of 20-some-year-old men.
Yeah.
One getting ready to strap a gun belt on to go to work 3 to 11 that day. And I remember, I'll tell you, the Pleasant Hills Police dispatch, the dispatch that dispatched us to that fire, also dispatched Clairton Police. So they were my dispatchers. So when I went to work at Clairton Police, I talked to and brought my prisoners back to Pleasant Hills. So like I had obviously a dual relationship, probably a fourfold because my dad worked there. So I had them, like all those people raised me like that. That's where I, all this.
You're leaving out that you worked there too.
And I worked there, personally myself. Yeah. So, shout out. But anyway, I called off work from the basket of truck 2. And I remember looking, I'm like, what time? Because we didn't carry phones. There was not, you know what I mean? So we had to kind of
might have beepers.
And I think maybe I always kept time for fires, Dan, by the dispatcher, because the dispatcher would always, give us the time of after, whatever the benchmark was for the fire. So, and I remember saying, oh shit, I got to work 3 to 11. So I'm supposed to go to work. I called off from the basket. I called Kay on the radio and said, report me off 3 to 11 to Clairton Police. And she's like, 10-4. And the police chief of Clairton, Michael Gresham, still alive and well. He got on the radio, and I think his call sign at the time was like 40 or something like that, like the chief number or whatever. And I remember in this deep voice, he was like 40. I copy that. You remember his voice?
Yeah.
I can almost imitate him, and not in a racial way or anything like that. Like, I so respect that man. He's one of my idols. But anyway, yeah, so that was my take on.
I remember at one point, Joe Kenny came up to me and he said, he goes, you're going to like this. He goes, Floyd Neveling was the police chief. He said, Floyd said, Hey, why don't you get a hold of Keith, see if he'll come in and help dispatch? Like, Chief, he's like, there's no way Keith's going to come in and dispatch.
Yeah, hold on. Let me take my fire gear off in front of this burning building.
You had mentioned the propane tanks, but there's
Yeah, there it
there's
is.
an image of the propane tank that almost killed Phil
so
Lahr, I
That's
think,
the
right?
Phil Lahr
Who's got
Memorial.
this? So
Yeah,
what-
Lee would
who's that?
remember that. That thing came flying
It
through
came
the wall.
the black block wall, right?
Yeah.
And almost killed that Phil Lahr.
Phil Lahr.
Yeah, I
It's Phil
saw
Lahr
Phil in
Memorial
the
Propane
video.
Tank.
Yeah.
So
It's been up there for so long. It's so awesome.
yeah, since then. But speaking of that, some of the other hazards, I don't know if you want to get into some of the other hazards that were going on. There's ammunition going off. There's chemicals and
Yeah, you name it, it was there. The hazmat was the fertilizer, the propane tanks. There was a fuel tank, I believe, in the automotive center, or oil. I think it was used oil or something like that.
Yeah. So
And there was a lot of runoff that contained some fertilizer and
Well,
hydrocarbons.
I'll back you up on this hazard thing. I remember Mark and we had dual deck guns in that, or dual tip guns in that rig. One was a smooth bore and one was a automatic nozzle, TFT. And so him and I were having that what I call basket talk. You know what I mean? Like, okay, hey, put one of your master stream over there. Mine's doing better over here. Like we literally at that point,
You were doing
now I'm
something.
in the basket 100 feet above this building. And I'm trying to I'm thinking in my head that I'm actually going to save the garden center. You know what I mean? As the roof as we can see the roof virtually in piece by piece collapsing
Thank
towards the
God
garden
you
center.
saved the garden center.
And then for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to be the hero to put out the garden center. Well, that obviously did not happen because it was just this amazing bright blues and yellows and pinks. And
speaking of hero, there's a.
Is that at that?
There
fire?
he is.
That's you.
Oh, I think is that the one I made it into the magazine or
the
something?
newspaper. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been famous a long time, Keith. I've been telling you, man.
So, wanted to throw up the photo too of what might have been the cause. I don't know. You want to talk a little bit about that? What the fire marshal said that suspected cause.
Well, I was just going through the report. You might be pulling up that piece of BX that was melted at the end. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
There's so many other side stories of other firefighters, and we're not saying that we have the only stories there. Obviously, there's a lot of firefighters that will probably hear this at some point or know that we talked about it or whatever. But we acknowledge all of the people that helped that day and still do to this day. There's a lot of people that
It was pretty much the four of us.
I know we didn't. The four of us didn't save K-Mart. Is that what you're trying to say?
Pretty much.
So anyway,
But
I don't want to.
There wasn't a
Not one.
lot to do though, like other than either standing in the basket of an aerial truck and master streams.
Well,
there wasn't a whole lot to do
we
like on the
seen-
ground.
We were the ones that actually, not say did something, but we were the initial. And
That's what I mean, but
we were in the building. and,
After that though, I remember like coming out and stuff, and after that, I'm like, okay, like you guys were up in the basket. They had people were already on
Yeah.
master streams, and I don't think I really did a whole lot. I remember going over to Dan's command vehicle and sitting there for a little bit to see if he needed any help or whatever, but there wasn't a whole
No,
lot.
you're right. So
to
I said
do.
we should have let it burn. We would have been out of there a lot quicker. There'd have been a lot less water runoff. But nobody lets those things burn.
No, and you had to worry about embers too. It was a windy day. There's buildings downwind of that.
Yeah, I was actually worried about the houses up above it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that.
I don't remember who I sent up there. I feel bad for them, but I sent a crew up there to watch the embers.
No, you
on
got
the houses.
That's what we're here for. We do something.
Yeah.
But
I think best part of my best memory from there is we went to Haas's to eat.
Yes.
So Haas's was closed off, nobody could get to it, and
No.
somebody told us, "Hey, Haas's said come over and eat over for free. They'll take care of all."
Yeah,
the
and then they
firefighters."
handed me a bill.
Yes,
Well, they handed us a bill when we were leaving, and we're
You
like,
believe that?
we're
How
like,
much
we don't-
was it?
nobody has a
we'll be,
wallet on us.
we'll be
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
How much was it?
I don't remember.
It was
They
not.
sent it to the
It
fire
was a
department.
few $100.
Yeah,
Because like everybody was going over there, like getting a steak burger. There were people actually. Now this is so bad. The fire was under control. We had thought they had given us the invitation. There was people that had been at that fire for, at that point probably 10 plus hours, maybe 8 plus hours at least. So that we had thought that they were okay with, obviously they were okay with us coming in and eating
The stock.
or grabbing something or whatever,
Stock.
but they ended up
Free.
sending
Yeah.
you, and we didn't know this. So they were keeping a running tab, and they actually billed the fire department for our food,
Yeah.
which we gladly, I guess, I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
how
no
that
big
worked out,
deal.
but
I remember the news media was camped out around the chief's vehicle, just waiting for me to get out. And it was hours and hours and hours. And I finally, when things died down a little bit, I got out and they just surrounded me and they're like, Chief, what do you have to say? I said, I have to piss. I'm going over to Haas's. I'll be back in a minute.
Did you tell them that? Yes.
So I was there until midnight. I guess we were there throughout the night. I know we did shifts the next day. I came back for a shift the next day, and I think maybe around like noonish that day,
Yeah.
everything was pretty much out. And then for a couple days we dealt with hotspots.
Yeah, we were talking pre-interview. I think I was in a big time cop mode at that point in my life, even though I was still volleying. So like I think I went right back to work because I was doing that, and I was doing other things with the department, in the course of my duties. So I think I just immersed myself back into that. You guys were talking about, you guys had sign-ups and shifts to cover in case there was flare-ups or whatever. I hate to call them rekindles because it's really not rekindling. It was just still on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we just couldn't get to it.
We're the idiots that didn't get all of it. You know what I mean? And it happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to me all the time. But yeah, so go ahead. But anyway, that was my take on that. I don't remember. It was like a blur of that like the next 2 months there. And then I look longer than that away from it. And I think at one point, I don't know when it was, but it like hit you that it's probably obviously is when you mature and you start thinking back on the craziest shit you do in your life. That's not even at the top 3, but it's up there. But you look back and you go, man, I was like,
we should be dead.
Maybe a minute away from death. Because when I made it out the front door, someone said they needed help with the truck, like I said, and I remember looking back and there was fire coming out the front doors, and it had to be like not by the time I even got to you, maybe there was already fire coming out those front doors. So that's how fast that collapse happened in the front of the building. Think about that. The point of origin was the very correct end, and the stock room in the very back of the building.
Yeah.
So,
But again, that roof burned
like you said.
independent of that and spread everywhere.
yeah,
I think your dad was in there a few hours before we got dispatched. And he said it smelled like burning pizza or something in there.
so.
So
Yeah,
that thing was burning
yeah,
for a
right.
long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he remembers it. He talks about it when it comes up. He'll always say, he was there like an hour before and thought that he didn't, not enough, I guess, in his head, but he was still a cop, or he had just recently retired. So he was, obviously still on his game, but it wasn't enough for him to initiate a bigger investigation, but it was curious, I guess.
Well, they had the cafeteria or something. in
They
there,
did.
right?
Yeah. The K Cafe.
So, I mean, and we did save something. I mean, it
Yeah,
wasn't a total
There's a
loss. You could
firewall
see-
right there, dude.
Yeah, you can see
that building. There's a firewall. Nothing was going past there.
We saved lazy.
Yeah. You
That's
got to
right.
give that credit to Jefferson and Skyview.
Skyview Squirt.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah,
Skyview Squirt and Jefferson
Yeah.
handled the firewall.
That's where Robbie
To
had
the south.
the step gun in that door.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but they tore it down anyway.
Of course they did. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insurance. You know what I mean? It's insured. It's they put it up and was back.
Yeah.
Same K-Mart's gone, man.
You can see the proximity to the houses up there. So I was a little worried. That
Right. You
something
can see
would-
that Jersey barrier wall I was
Yeah.
talking about. It goes all the way around the back of that building. You know what I mean? So it was tight back there. Like when you couldn't get a rig. You couldn't get it. I don't think you could get an engine around or a truck around the 2-3 corner. That was pretty tight. I don't know if anybody.
You could, but that's it. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, it could get. You think it's what was wide enough because it was pretty
Yeah,
tight. there.
no,
I don't think-
we had, because recently we had some call or something. We actually went around the building from that side in the engine. And that part of the building was still,
Yeah, you can
That's
get
still
around
the
it.
original.
That's still the original,
Yeah,
so
where
yeah,
the
we were-
cleaners used to be, and where we
Yeah.
had the haunted house.
How
Remember
did
the haunted house?
yeah? How did Castle Shannon's truck get back there? Did they back in from?
I don't know, but
I
it's
thought they
tight.
were on the side 4 side
They were
also.
they were 4. side.
I thought they were on side 4 also.
4-1. They were 4-1 by the garden center.
Yeah, I thought
Like
Castle.
back,
Oh,
in the-
okay.
back towards East
Okay,
Houston.
got you.
You know what I mean? Like in the farthest point of the end of that building there.
So one of the weird things after this fire is I must have found some photos online. I think in the newspaper Trib Post Gazette or something, and I just found this photo from up in Southwestern Health Center up on Lewis Run Road, looking down over the hillside, and you could see the column of smoke. That column of smoke was really impressive. But so I'm like, oh, that's a cool picture, and I made it my desktop picture on my computer. So some months later, I was just sitting there, and I guess I was just sort of daydreaming, looking at the picture, and there's just people standing in the foreground. And I looked at the one person, like, it's my sister. So like I called her. I'm like, hey, I said, where were you at the day of the K-Mart fire? And she's like, oh, we're up by Southwestern. We stopped and we're looking over the hillside. I'm like, there's been a picture
No way.
on my desktop for months. Like her and my brother-in-law standing there looking down the hillside. And I never realized it was them in the picture. But
They thought, years later, obviously, I got on in McKeesport, got hired in the city there, and I remember talking to the older, now retired guys, and they all said that the guys that were on duty in McKeesport were eating breakfast or lunch or whatever at a restaurant that like looked out over like the West Mifflin area, and they seen the column of smoke and thought that the junkyard was on fire. That's how
Tube City.
Yeah, down the junkyard in McKeesport, the Castoras. And it was, they were like, holy shit, the entire Castoras is on fire here. It was our fire. It was the smoke from our fire.
yeah, you could say, I know that somebody commented in the comments about seeing it from Bethel Park, but
Yeah, Mike did. Yeah, Mike Innocenti.
yeah, it was pretty impressive. Anything else?
He was asking what all fire companies were.
Yeah, I think Dan sort of.
I did run through that.
What he had asked. I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
he kind of made that comment right when Dan was kind of making a rundown and thanking, and I think you do.
just real quick. I don't know if I can get to it, but I know the helicopter footage like pulled out, and you can see like.
Yeah, that was the WTAE helicopter.
Yeah, he was actually a member at the time.
Was it this guy? I knew there was some guy
Yeah.
that was
You remember that,
flying
Dan?
a helicopter.
The guy that took this video from the Channel 4 helicopter, he was a member at the time.
Of our fire
Uh-huh.
company?
Really.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew we got the tape, and it was like rare that you could get footage or something like that. We had it wasn't like legal issues or something. It was just access of it, and we just kept saying we weren't going to use it, not use it. We were at the time we just kind of wanted to do a retrospect or we were
Just to see it.
we were to see it. Obviously, that's cool as hell, but critique it really. As much as we could, understand, and you learn more about flat roof construction. And I was telling the guys earlier in the story, I had the pleasure of vacationing for a few years down in Charleston, and we had run into a ladder company at a restaurant in like downtown Charleston. This was post them losing 9 of their own in basically a fire similar building, very similar to that. And it was flow path. There was a lot of other things, I could go into that for hours, but I had my son wanted to see the ladder truck. Okay. I didn't go over and say, hey dudes, man, I work in blah, blah, blah. My son just was like on my leg saying, Dad, I want to go see that fire truck. I want to go see that fire truck. So we went over, and I had a quick friendship with the people when they invited us down to their firehouse to buy t-shirts and stuff. Anyway, talking to them, and some of them that were working that night that I was there were there the night that they lost 9 of their own in the Sofa Superstore fire. So, and it flooded, when a few of the guys started talking about it, and, I didn't bring up, I was in a warehouse fire, you know what I mean? I wasn't that person. I was really just taking in one of their guys' stories. He actually gave me his on-duty visor. I wore it for years. I still have it, but it's such a flood of memories, like these guys lost 9 firefighters in one of the most horrific American line of duty deaths, besides, God bless 9/11, but it was, one of the biggest tragedies. And we were, Scott, you and I were a minute away from being not sitting in this podcast studio right now. Like that's like a minute, man. I've been shot at, man. That's like number 2 is someone shooting at you when you can hear bullets go by your head. That's pretty impressive. But that's right there, man. that's right there once you think about it. But anyway,
Well, it's pretty much all I had. Anybody else have anything want to?
no.
So there you go, Terry. I know you've been waiting for years to hear about Kmart. So
Hope
hopefully
you hear it, man.
I'll be watching later. I'm sure he's going to hear
Probably
it.
has questions.
If he has any questions, Terry, give me a call and I'll go over it again with you.
Yeah.
So I just want to.
Terry's got to buy beers. He asked for it, right?
That's right. Yeah. Don't forget our giveaway for the fire cam flashlight. We already gave away the camera itself, but we're still doing the flashlight on the X channels. So once we get to 200 subscribers, we'll be giving that away. And that's about it. Gino, you got anything you want to add?
No, man. Everybody be safe. Weather's changing quickly. Make sure you, and I did all the time, is I packed I always had a go bag when I was working on the rigs. And it was always like, obviously just common sense stuff, spare socks, spare tassel cap, spare socks and a tassel cap, man. That'll take you a long way. It's very rare that you can actually do a change out. So I never kept like pants in or anything like that. I just kept like something that just made you feel a little bit more warm for one and comfortable, so if you got a go bag and you're on a job, throw it on a rig, start throwing it on a rig now, because you'll be surprised, extra set of gloves, some guys carry those, what are those, like disposable, heaters or whatever. Anyway, I'm going too far, but anyway, yeah, just do that. And really just try to suck. I mean, it's not really hard.
All right. Thank you, Scott, for joining us.
Thanks again for
All
having me.
right. We'll see everybody next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Don't forget, we're going to be talking to Battalion Chief, FDNY Battalion Chief, Mark Gregory. See you then.
Peace.